Yes, welcome everyone. Cannabis news. I'm your host, Joe Klare. It's June 12th, 2019. The show, as always, is presented by the Marijuana Times. Check us out at marijuanatimes.org. Click that video tab at marijuanatimes.org to find the show. A bunch of great articles there as well. Social media links and more. Check us out the Marijuana Times. Search us on Google or your favorite search engine as well and find us that way. Today, talking about Canada and how they are screwing up legalization. Also, evidence of marijuana use from more than 2,000 years ago in China, and some marijuana law reform news out of Cincinnati. All that coming up. But first, of course, Cannabis News is brought to you by Natureside, nature-side.com, and their organic, all-natural pesticides. Make sure you're growing safe and poison-free, and you're regulatory compliant in the state that you are growing in. Don't use banned pesticides. Don't use harmful chemicals on what you are growing. That would be awful of you. Just awful. Go to Natureside, nature-side.com. Check out their organic, all-natural pesticides. They're an awesome sponsor of the show. Thank you, Natureside. This first story by yours truly at marijuanatimes.org. Has Canada lost its competitive advantage in the legal marijuana industry? Of course, you can check out the full article by clicking the link in the description of this video. All the stories I talk about on the show are linked in the description of the video, during which or in which they are talked of or talked about. In any case, if you want to go check it out, it's at marijuanatimes.org as well. Basically, the problem in Canada is government. Now, I know I get out the tiny violin. I'm beating a dead horse. I sound like a broken record. Lay the cliches on me. That's what I always say. Government screwing things up. But where else would you lay the blame at for what's going on in Canada? Product shortages, declining sales. How do you take declining month-over-month sales of legal marijuana in an entire country we've just legalized marijuana? How? You restrict supply. I've said many times before, lawmakers, officials, bureaucrats, whatever, they're too worried about the restrictions that may be placed on the industry when the key to growing the cannabis industry is very simple. And I'm no business guru. I'm not some CNBC guy who screams and throws papers or whatever. But if you look at every other product, every other successful product, every other successful store, every other successful industry, they all have one thing in common. People can go buy their products. There's a lot of places to go buy their products. There's a lot of supply. There's ample supply to meet the demand. When they go to these places, there's a good variety, there's a good selection, there's a good price range. These are how industries grow. They put out products to a bunch of different places. And people in those different places, so they don't have to drive a long way, they can go to the places that are near them, and they buy those things. I can sit here for the next 6 hours and just list things and commodities and services and products that flourish in this manner. But when it comes to marijuana, they're not worried about that. If you want the marijuana industry to grow, you need more marijuana. There's no way for me to say that without sounding condescending, so be it. It's condescending. If you want to sell more marijuana, you need to sell more marijuana. If you want the marijuana industry to grow, there has to be more products for sale in more places. I don't know. This is not difficult. I'm not some business guru. I'm just some guy who walks in the stores and has eyeballs and has a mouth and a brain to process information and put it out to you. An industry to grow, whether it's automobiles or blenders or big screen TVs or cell phones, there's going to be a lot of them, a lot of variety, low prices, a lot of places to get them. That's the key to marijuana. Canada, they're not about that at all. They're about restrictions, regulations, taxes. And in the case of marijuana, well, people just go elsewhere. They go to the people that they've been going to probably for years now on the black market. Their dealers, their guy, their buddies, somebody they know that grows, somebody they know that sells out of their basement. It doesn't matter. They have other options. They have other opportunities. And why are they going to go jump through hoops to buy your overpriced, low-quality marijuana? Which I said at the beginning. If you're going to restrict supply, that's what's going to happen. It's going to be very expensive. People are not going to want it. I don't know. I can't explain supply and demand to people. It's a simple concept, and you can't get away from it. You would like to make it go away, but you can't. So you have to work within the parameters of it, because it's supply and demand. Go look it up. It's very simple, and it works for everything. works for every scarce resource that people want to purchase. All of them. All commodities, services, and products are under the laws of supply and demand, and they are restricted within those laws. And if you don't like that, I'm sorry, I don't know what to tell you. You're going to end up with problems. Canada's having problems. Look at the supply part. There's a lot of demand. Got that covered. Demand for marijuana, there's a lot. It's big. It's bigly. There's a bigly demand for marijuana. That's covered. Now you need a legal supply to meet that demand, and bam, oh man, you got an industry. It's crazy. It's crazy how that works. But it does. Every time. This next story from sciencemag.org. Oldest evidence of marijuana use discovered in 2,500-year-old cemetery in the peaks of western China. That's a great title. All around. Kudos for all of that. A team led by archaeologist Yang Yimin and Rang Meng of the Chinese Academy of Sciences in Beijing reports clear physical evidence that mourners burned cannabis for its intoxicating fumes on a remote mountain plateau in Central Asia some 2,500 years ago. The study was published in Science Advances, relies on new techniques that enable researchers to identify the chemical signature of the plant and even evaluate its potency. They can tell the potency of the weed 2,500 years later. That's crazy. I'm sorry, I know we're a very technologically advanced, jaded society, but step back for a minute and think about that. They can tell how strong the weed was that these people were smoking 2,500 years ago. That's impressive. Come on, you got to give it up. Even the most jaded, cynical person has to give it up for that. We're in the midst of it in a really exciting period, says team member Nicole Boivin of the Max Planck Institute for the Science of Human History in Jena, Germany. The paper is part of a wider effort to track how the drug spread along the nascent Silk Road on its way to becoming the global intoxicant it is today. Cannabis, also known as hemp or marijuana, well, it's not really true hemp and marijuana, but cannabis. Anyway, evolved about 2,800 million years ago on the eastern Tibetan plateau, according to a pollen study published in May. Close relative of the common hop found in beer, the plant still grows wild across Central Asia. More than 4,000 years ago, Chinese farmers began to grow it for oil and fiber to make rope, clothing, and paper. But pinpointing when people began to take advantage of the marijuana's psychoactive property has proved tricky. Archaeologists have made claims of ritual cannabis burning in Central Asian sites as far back as 5,000 years ago. But new analysis of those plant remains by other teams suggests that early cannabis strains had low levels of THC, which of course grew over the years. The cannabis burned 2,500 years ago at the Jerzenko Cemetery, 3,000 meters high in the Pamir Mountains in far western China. I'm butchering a lot of words in this story. That's impressive, the amount of words I'm butchering. This was different. Excavations there have uncovered skeletons of wooden plates, bowls, and Chinese harps, as well as wooden braziers that held burning material. The wooden braziers were concentrated in the more elite tombs. That's where they think a lot of the smoking was going on. The rich people had the access to the marijuana for their mourning, if you will. So, very interesting story you can check out again. Linked in the description of this video, last but not least, from Cincinnati.com. Cincinnati City Council votes to allow marijuana possession of up to 100 grams. Voted Wednesday, the City Council of Cincinnati, that is, to decriminalize marijuana possession, allowing individuals to have up to 100 grams without fear of fines or prosecution. The measure passed 5-3, means Cincinnati will join a rapidly growing number of states and cities that have either legalized or removed criminal penalties for possession of small amounts of marijuana. The law will take effect in 30 days. Council majority has been moving toward decriminalization for weeks now. So the big question Wednesday was now how permissive the law would be. Hamilton County Prosecutor Joe Dieters warned council in May that allowing 100 grams or less would be excessive personal use, make it harder for police and prosecutors to prove drug trafficking charges. There's another bill that they're going to talk about sometime next week, I guess, that is a less amount of a decriminalization. And if that one passes, then that will override this one. So the 100 grams is not set in stone. The 100 grams limit, if you will, is not set in stone. So we'll see if it stands. We'll see if another decriminalization measure is put in its place that has lower thresholds. We'll see. We'll continue to follow that story and all other stories here on Cannabis News, of course, The end of this week, episode 420. It's a big celebration all week here at the Marijuana Times. Make sure you search the Marijuana Times on YouTube and on Vimeo. If you want the audio version of the show, search us out on Apple Podcasts. Of course, if you're on YouTube, hit that little notification bell. That'll let you know when a new episode has dropped of Cannabis News. Keep spreading the truth about cannabis with this show. You are awesome. Keep liking, sharing, commenting, and all that good stuff. Thanks for watching and listening today, and we'll see you next time right here on Cannabis News. Whoops. That's when I usually hit the music. It's very smooth when I do it. It wasn't smooth today. Let's try it again. Thanks for watching and listening today right here on Cannabis News. There you go. Professional.